Hi, I'm Woodpecker today. I'm making this fishing rod rack. But unfortunately, I don't have any fishing rod here to show you how this will look like. But one thing I can show you is the nice carving I did on top of it. Regis, our daughter's boyfriend, is a hardcore fisherman. He goes fishing every weekend, especially in winter. So last Christmas, I decided to make him a fishing rod rack. And this is the design I decided on making. Yes, it even has a nice fish sculpture on top. All the rack, except for the sculpture, will be made out of pine. So the first thing to do is to surface enough pine boards for the top and bottom of the rack. After cutting 4 planks, it's time to glue them 2 by 2. When the glue is dry, I sand them smooth. Now it's time to think about the bottom. Everything will be cut with my CNC. The first thing that will be done is the dome-shaped holes. It's quite simple when you're making this with Aspire. Here's how I did them. I select each circle of my pattern, and in the Modeling tab, I select Create a Shape from a vector outline. And here, it's as simple as selecting the dome shape with an angle of -90 degrees and a base height of 0. Next, I open my new component and make sure that the height of the dome is equal to half the thickness of the wood, and that's it. Now I just need to make the toolpath with a ball nose bit, and here's the shape each hole will have. And if we look at the final result, well, it's exactly this. But I'm not totally done with the bottom. I need to change the bit for a straight end mill to cut the outside shape and cut it. Obviously, this doesn't go as fast as this. But I have a small accident when the posts all are being drilled. The router bit is not raising high enough, so it removed some wood that should have stayed there. All this because of the spacer under the glue up that is smaller than the actual piece of wood, and the clamps made it bowed. Now I have to get rid of this. But not yet. I still have the top to cut. With all those curves, I'm pretty glad I have a CNC to cut it. This goes much faster than by hand. But not as fast as this though. Here's the final result. I'm pretty pleased. But a little less about those lines I have to remove. Some were so deep that the sander is not enough. To speed up the process, I use my plane and sand again. But the wood grain near the nut is going in all directions. I add tearing here and there. So I fill those holes with epoxy, and now I need to sand this again. I also need to sand the holes. The 4 small tabs also have to go. Now I need to take care of the top. One thing I can say is that without any problem with the bit on the top, this was so much easier. The corners are too sharp. I need to fix this right now. And here's how both parts look like on top of one another. All the holes aligned perfectly. But the noise you hear in the background is in fact the 3D fish that's being carved. But before doing that, I had to prepare it. And it's not too complicated. Again, in Aspire, I create a new job to the size of the wood I have on hand. Then, it's as simple as importing the 3D STL file. But it's a bit too big, so I scale it down to the right size. Center it, and that's it. I'm ready to carve it. But before, I need to make sure I have the right height. Now I'm ready for the tool paths. I begin with the roughing pass. After checking that the material setup is okay, I go to the roughing toolpath setup and make sure I have the right router bit, which is the 1/4 inch ball nose, with a step over of 40%. I don't forget to add 10 mm of boundary offset, and I'm ready to calculate the roughing toolpath. And here's what the router bit will cut. It would be so nice if it would just take this amount of time. But in fact, carving the roughing pass takes 9 hours in real time. But with only the roughing pass, this carving wouldn't look so great. I need a finishing pass. And this pass is made with a 1 mm conical ball nose router bit with the step over of 10%. And now that I'm sure that all the setups are okay, I can calculate the finishing pass. And here's what needs to be sculpted. Unfortunately, it's not as fast as this. In all, this will take a little bit more than 13 hours. This seems long, but there are more than 2,000 horizontal lines to sculpt for this fish. But even if I have the file to sculpt this, I need the wood. For this, I'm going to use this piece of oak that I saved from my firewood pile. I cut both edges straight. I also need at least one smooth side. So I sand it on my drum sander. The bottom is super smooth, but I don't need to have a super smooth top. Now I need to secure that on my CNC bed and leave it to do its magic. First of all, the roughing pass. Like I said before, this takes 9 hours. During that time, I work on the bottom and top of the rack. But I also have 3 posts to turn. And here, I can take my time, because the finishing pass will add 13 hours to the process. So for the posts, I begin by cutting some pine planks square. After finding the center and trace a round shape, I can use this circle to move my rib fans so I can cut all the corners. Then I can put this hexagon on my lathe and turn a round cylinder. When it's done, I need to mark all the transitions that I want. On some marks, I add 2 other marks for the beads. I start the lathe and retrace my marks so I can see them more clearly. And finally, I'm ready to turn my first post. When I have the shape that I want, it's time for the final sanding. And finally, I need to make both end tenons to the right size. And now I have my first post. But I need 3 in all. And here they are. This is the post that I've showed you that I've turned. But at the end, I didn't like it, and this one broke in two. The last thing to do is to cut the tenons to the right length and try a dry fit. This is perfect. I just need something here. And I'm lucky because the carving is finished. It only took 22 hours. Not bad. Not bad at all. This will look super nice just here. But before I can put that there, I need to cut its profile. But I'm not done yet. I need to sand it a bit. But the sander can reach everywhere, so I need to finish the job with a coping saw and rasps. I'm super happy. Now I can glue this in place. Here I have to be super careful because I only have one chance to get it straight. To clamp this, I put 3 sandbags and a small piece of metal. So while the glue is drying, I burn the date on the base and glue small feet under the base. I put a little bit of pressure there also. I just need to wait for the glue to dry. After, it's time to glue the posts in place. Done. Now I need to wait for the glue to dry again. When it is, I clean all the rack with alcohol and spray it. I begin by the bottom and then all the rest. Four hours later, the varnish is dry enough so I can sand it to remove the small bumps. I clean this with water and spray another coat. The next day, the fishing rod rack is completed. I must admit that I really like it. And even the posts are not that bad. But its best feature is the actual carving on the top. When you look at it closely, you can see all the small details. I love it. And here's Régis on Christmas Eve.
Oh! Un rack à canne à pêche!
This was one of the gifts that I made last Christmas, and see you soon for another episode of the Woodpecker.